Hey everyone, John here. Before the show gets started, I just want to explain that the reason I'm not on the show tonight. Rob's going to tell you at the beginning of the show, but right as we started to record last night, my power went out. It was around, I'm going to say about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and did not come back on until almost 1:30 in the morning. So I told Rob to go ahead and record a show without me because I wanted to get one out because we had missed the last week, and I didn't want to go too much further without getting one out there because I know you all love and miss us so much. But to say a little bit about what I was going to say on the show, kind of trying to grab my mojo back, so to speak, kind of getting back in the hills in Claremont, riding a little bit with Jennifer again, and doing some swimming. Actually going to do a triathlon on September 8th in Claremont, which is someplace I haven't done a triathlon there in a couple of years now, so should be interesting. I don't want to take up much time because Rob's going to explain at the beginning his part that why I'm not on the show, but just want you all to know that I'm still out here and get on the Facebook group and show us some love and trying to get some items out there for you shortly as far as bike jerseys and triathlon kits and things like that. So hopefully you guys will need some things and kind of support the show again this time. So without further ado, let's get the show started.
Ready to start your journey? Whether it's your first workout or you are a seasoned athlete, Endurance for Everyone Coaching wants to work with you. Our coaching team has worked with athletes from beginners to USAT national qualifiers and are comprised of experienced runners, cyclists, and triathletes who have a passion for healthy living and have been where you are. We offer comprehensive coaching programs from weekly support to basic consultation, all designed to help you achieve your goals. If you want to take your performance to the next level, look no further than Endurance for Everyone Coaching. Go to www.teamE4E.com and click on the coaching link or send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And let's get started.
Welcome to this week's Endurance for Everyone podcast.
The following program is for entertainment purposes only. Though the hosts of this show are certified Ironman coaches, their attempts at long-course triathlons and endurance events should not be taken as an endorsement for you to do something stupid too. You should make your own bad decisions, then podcast about it. Now, let's start the show.
Hey, this is John Harris.
And this is Rob Bozovich.
And Endurance is for Everyone, and this is the Endurance for Everyone podcast.
Hey guys, it's just Rob right now. John and I encountered a little snafu. He lost some power. Usually comes right back on, but we were waiting for a bit, and he hasn't got it back yet. So I'm going to go ahead and get the show started here, and I'm going to go through a few things, and then hopefully John gets his power back, and we'll get him pulled into the show. Otherwise, it might just be me. Not real sure which way it's going to go at this point. So anyways, we normally start with, hey, how we been and all that type of stuff, with some banter. Things been going good for me. If you guys have followed on Facebook or saw there or in the group or whatnot, I've been out for a little bit, and that's because I was on vacation with the family. Started with going to Harrisburg for triathlon that I was going to recap for you guys here in the show. Ended up in Boston, did hit a November project workout. That's the next part of the show that I'm going to go over here. And then a bunch of stuff with the little guy and the wife. Had a great trip. Got to do some really neat things there. So if John's not back on here in a minute, I will go over just a few of them. You guys don't need to hear all about my vacation and so forth. But some things I think are worth sharing, especially in endurance podcast like this. What I was starting to do previously on other shows was giving you guys a recap what we had talked about on previous shows, what we're going to talk about on this one, and then upcoming. So I'm going to go ahead and go through that. Last show, well, when I usually would say last week, but as you guys following along know, there was no show last week. John and I were going to try to record at night. He ended up with a migraine, so he was down and out. And I, being on my cell phone, wasn't able to get the something out to you guys. So there was no show, no sprints. So when I do say last time, I'm just going to go back to a previous episode, which was episode 145, and that is we talked about motivation, trying to what do we do and kind of hitting the summer funk. Just recapped a few things there because we have covered that topic in the past, and then we went over shoes and mileage and stuff. And that was something I had teased out on Facebook, and then we got some answers to what do you think's on these shoes, which I bring up both of those topics because we had done that 2.5 weeks ago at this point. And then in the group, somebody had recently shared, and I'm going to call this maybe a little segment on other shows. Rich Roll's podcast was shared out on our group, and they had talked a little bit about training versus exercise. Great episode. If you haven't had a chance to go listen to it, go ahead. And there was another topic, and I had a little fill in the blank here. I was hoping John would jump in because I couldn't remember, but there was another part of their show where they covered basically something that we had just covered. And then the Marathon Training Academy show that just dropped within the last day or two, their quick tip at the end of their show was basically the exact same thing that we had gone over at the end of our last show, episode 145, which was, they had the question on what shoe's best. And the answer was, there's not necessarily a best shoe, but it's go get fitted, find one that you like, that fits you well, as far as drop brand, drop meaning heel to toe. Some shoes are a 10, some are a 0, some are 4 millimeter. You got to make sure you don't go too fast from one to the other. Make sure they fit. Track your mileage. It was just kind of funny how a couple of the topics that we just covered were covered, in the same, almost identically, more in depth. Actually, in the Rich Roll, I just thought of it. The other part that they'd gone over was stretching, and the one person that Rich was talking to was going back, and not necessarily back and forth, but through time chronologically. The guy was originally all for stretching, then he was against stretching, and now he's, when I say for stretching again, but it's nearly identical to what John and I had summarized, and that was no static stretching. It was, warm up, stretch, do your workout, stretch if you're going to stretch after your workout, and make it dynamic, make it a fluid movement type of deal. So, and that's, I don't want to say a whole bunch of people with a lot more knowledge and training and so forth than John or I have. So, go out there and listen to it, kind of just a validation of what we're saying there. I do one thing I was going to share with John, maybe get some feedback from the group, and that being said, it's funny. I was just doing my shoes, my mileage, and one of the things I had said was I was between 600 and 700 miles on my Newtons. I'd give updates when we go through it. It might be the end of my Newtons, and that is I lost one of the lugs. It tore off the bottom. So I'm unsure. I haven't tried running in them yet to see if I would feel the difference. There's basically 4 lugs. They go under the main parts of your foot. Like if you're looking at your hand where your fingers join those knuckles, they would hit that part of the same part on your foot. And it's not like I lost the outermost on the right or left. It's one of the middle ones. So I might try to give it a run to see. But at that point, if the shoes are falling apart, literally might be time to, get rid of them. I did pick up a new pair of shoes. Was up at DSW, and I saw a pair of Sauconys. I jumped on my phone to check and immediately see what was going to work. If they were going to work for me, I should say. They were a really light, breathable shoe. It's their Saucony or Saucony Light Form Escape. It has a 4 millimeter drop, which I usually run in a 0 or a 4, so it fit right in there for me. Has a nice little bit of cushioning and a really light material that composes the toe box, so they breathe really well. And being how hot it's been, I thought it might be nice to try those. So I haven't actually run in them yet. I've only gone out and done some walking, trying to get them broken in a little bit. Circling back around here, and I just want to bring it up, Brandon in the group had shared with me that his favorite shoe, and this circles back to Marathon Training Academy in the recent tip section there. Angie talks about her favorite shoe, and that's the Ultra Escalante. And I believe they're coming out with a new model, or I don't know what version, if they're going 1 to 2, 3 to 5, or whatever they're doing. And as such, the shoe recently dropped in price from, I believe, $130 down to $99 on Ultra's website. I was actually out looking, and on runningwarehouse.com, looks like you're able to pick that shoe up right now for somewhere in the maybe $70 range. So if that's something that you, if you've never tried the brand, I'm not saying buy a shoe completely, without getting fit for it. But, I've ran in a pair of Ultras before. They're a zero drop shoe with some nice cushioning built in underneath. So that's something that, had I not just bought a pair last week, I might be considering it. Just wanted to share that because it's, once again, a very small world that one of our group members, it's his favorite shoe. It's mentioned on another show, and it's, right as we talk about shoes and somebody else talks about shoes and so forth. So just thought one of those little, karma things where it all kind of circles around, and it's just one of those small worlds. At this point, I don't have John yet, so one moment here. Sorry, John had shot me a text. I didn't know if he was able to get on at this point, and just not yet. So, anyways, without having him on, I won't be able to do his, when I say motivation follow-up, because he was getting, if you're following along in the group, he was getting his bike tuned up and was, going out and doing some rides. I haven't talked to him about it because I wanted to do it live on the show, see how it was and so forth. So if we get him pulled in, we can, and if not, might just have to cover that next week for you guys. So I guess I'll get into my topics. The one, as I had said, is the catfish try, which goes by like 2 or 3 different names. So it was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is the our state capital here in Pennsylvania. So a couple things that I don't know, I thought I would find out, and I still don't know. And so once again, it's either the Harrisburg try, the catfish try, or the City Island try. I don't know how it goes by 3 different names. That said, I figured out the City Island, and I don't know when I say the complete history behind it, but the City Island is, there's an island in the Susquehanna River, and therefore, right, I don't know what it maybe started life as, but currently there's a minor league, I'm going to say minor league, I could look it up and see, baseball team. They're actually for the Washington Nationals. I did see that on the stadium. There's the stadium on the island. There's a parking garage, and there's a merry-go-round, a carousel. There's an old, what looks like, they even call it the old soccer stadium. It's a pretty big field. It's starting to get a little bit overgrown though. A couple parks, say like swing sets and stuff for kids. In addition, there's some batting cages and some, like little shops and along the water. You can see it was kind of built up maybe 15, 20 years ago, and I'm assuming it's obviously owned by the city, hence City Island, and it's kind of a recreation spot. And whenever we were there, we saw tons of people with strollers and on bicycles and walking, and it was a very like a hot spot for people to get out and be like a little bit in nature, and to get out and be active, so forth. So that's where the City Island part of it comes from. On their website, it says, come down and find out why we call it the catfish. Not one person mentioned it or said anything about it. What I did find out is, I believe this was the 15th year that they had done the race, although it was the first year that this race director has done it. The other race director had moved, this guy had taken over, and that was in a few of their emails that had gone out. And I was going to say, it's funny, I jumped into doing this, signed up for it, was all ready for it, and was just thinking kind of along the lines of, okay, I'm going to go down, I'm going to have fun or whatever. And then there was probably about a 24, maybe a 48-hour, very high up and down emotional roller coaster ride. And, I was going to share all this live with John, so if we pull him in, I'll have to maybe repeat a little bit, but what happened is And we all get sucked into it one way or the other, our own things, or however it happens. So the day, maybe 2 days before we were leaving to go down for it, there was still, like, on the website, it said, because it always said sign up early, that might sell out. They only take in so many, a limited number of people, 300 registrants, I believe. And it said only like 9 spots remaining. But you go to the website and then you click on it, and it takes you to not active, but a website similar to that, I believe, to sign up for the race. But then that site basically said online registration is closed, please go back to, and it redirects you back to the race website. It was just kind of this little endless circle that just kept pushing you around, which made it look like you could sign up, but basically online registration was closed. I say that because I thought maybe about getting somebody else to sign up for it, and at that point it was pointed out to me that the swim was longer than normal. Now, when I say longer than normal, I've talked a lot about triathlons. When I say hit the highlights here, and this isn't perfect, but it'll give you guys the idea, and that is the biggest triathlon is the Ironman, 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, full marathon. Half Iron is half of that, so you have a 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike, half marathon, 13.1 run. In an international or an Olympic, the reason they call it goes by both is that's the standardized distance that you can do. It's pretty much across, international, different countries, or that's what they do at the Olympics. Believe, and I should have pulled it up for this, 1,500 meters, I want to say it is. I always want to say yards, and that's where I could be off on it. It's around, I want to say, 25 miles on the bike, and a 10K, which is about 6.1 miles, which is there for half or so of your half iron distance. The only thing that's really not completely standardized is your sprints, and that's usually because it's limited by venue. So some, like the dam try that I had just done, was a quarter-mile swim. Some places do a quarter mile is like about 400 yards or so. Some places do a 750-yard swim. So you have a little bit longer. When I went down and did the Quantico Triathlon in Virginia, it was a 750 swim, which works out to almost probably about, I think, about a half mile or so is what you're looking at on that one. The bike is usually, I've seen them as short as 11 miles up to maybe 15 miles, once again depending on how they can get your turnarounds and so forth. The run is 99% of the time standardized at a 5K on that one. So you still have, like, basically the bike is half of the international, the run is half the international, but the swim always varies in length. This one, whenever I went, like I said, it was pointed out to me as I was trying to get someone else to sign up for it. They advertise the swim at basically 0.8 miles, which is almost basically what you're doing for a Olympic distance. So it was really when I say would have been odd, a little spoiler, swim didn't end up happening. So the swim was going to be really long. Then you were going to have a decently longer bike. As again, I said the dam try is about 13 miles. This one they advertise at 14.75 or so, and a 5K. So that's what, when I say started my emotional roller coaster, is you guys have heard me say I'm naturally a good swimmer. I started getting really excited about having a longer swim on the front of this, followed by a flat bike and a very flat run. They advertise it as such. I'm not spoiling anything when I say in the race, they were dead flat. It was a great bike. It was a great run. They were both just perfectly pancake flat, and I was able to really get my speed up. There was nothing as far as hills, so to say. A little bit of wind, but is what it is for that. So I started getting really excited by that, thinking it was maybe, now once again, that whole, am I going to qualify for nationals, starts getting back in my mind there. Okay. Now, fast forward. So, the Saturday, we pack up the car, we head down there. We packet pickup's supposed to end at, I think, 5. We pull in the parking lot, probably like 4:53, and jump out of the car. It's just at a Fleet Feet. It's not like a huge expo or anything. I get inside, and the lady said, I got to get my number, and she said, "Oh, did you get the email?" I said, no, what email? And she said, well, due to E. coli in the water, it's no longer a try, it's going to be a duathlon. And it just like crushed me for like a couple reasons. One, I didn't know at that point now, because I know that if you sign up for a duathlon, it doesn't count. If you get first in your age group, it doesn't count for triathlon. Second is, y'all heard me say it, running's my weakest. Now I got to run twice. So I lost any advantage that I was thinking on the swim, and now I'm going to have to run twice. So, I got my chip. When I say they still gave you a chip, they gave you a numbered bib. No numbers or swim cap or any of that other stuff to worry about. So I picked up, they had sent out a PDF of the race map, but they had one there, so I picked it up as well just to kind of familiarize myself with it. And like I said, at that point, my wife and I were heading out to go check out Harrisburg and to see this city island. So then we spent some time, with the little guy. And there's a little actually steam powered locomotive that you can get on. It's like about a 10-minute ride. Takes a loop around the island. We did that. We did a little bit of walking. And a couple things became clear. The reason that they in previous years had done the 0.8 mile swim is you basically get in the water on the north side of the island. I'm going to say north. I could be incorrect directionally there. But anyways, you then swim down the island in the river with the water current, which helps, get you even faster. And then you get out on the south side and run over to the transition area. So that's why they do it at that distance. That's just where they can get in the water, where they can safely get in the water, safely get out of the water. So, but that it did pull it up and made it nice to see the venue first, because for the duathlon, you ended up running a little bit north, then you did this clockwise loop kind of around this path, this path / roadway. Then you pulled, once you're about 3/4 of the way around, you do this 180 hairpin turn. You go around that soccer stadium that I was telling you about, and now you're going counterclockwise, kind of like you do an outer loop and an inner loop. It makes like a big C. Then you return onto the same path and go down, hit transition, jump on your bike. And the bike, when I say it's it's a north, you cross a bridge, turn left, go north until you basically hit the turnaround point, turn around, come back around. That's it. The run, same deal. You cross a bridge. You, instead of going north, you go south. You run down this river, this river walk right alongside the river. Turn around, come back. It could not be easier. Very nice, very scenic. But so like I said, I was all excited. Everything was lining up for this national qualifying bid, and then, all of a sudden, I find out the bad news. Kind of bummed for most of the evening, but I then said, what, it's fine. It is what it is. I'm not going in not going to worry too much about it. One part I had skipped here was once my friend had told me about the longer swim, I actually then had started looking at all the past. When I say 24-hour roller coaster, 48 hours, I went and looked at the past race results for the last 10 years. They're all online. My numbers based on my recent tries put me right in where I could be first or second in the age group. The person who's first in my age group has aged out. He was 39 last year. He's going to be 40. So that basically means that the time that I had in most of my recent tries would beat the other person, which would put me at first, which would be a qualifying bid, or second. But that being said, is the age group, 9 out of 10 of the last years, it has had over 11 participants. Actually, it's had over 20 a couple of times, which means that they're going to take the top two, or 3. If it's at 21 people or more, they'd round up to 30, so they would take the top 3. So I'm really, really was getting excited. So much so, when I say that I was overthinking it, I started then. I wanted to make sure that there was zero, possibility of when I say failure. At that point, I went out and I told you guys how I track my shoes, and John and I had even said we track our mileage on our bikes. Tires on your bikes wear out. The tires that were on my bike had been on it since I bought it, and I knew that there was about 1,200 miles on the tires. bike tires need replaced between 1,000 and 2,000 miles, depending on the tire. So, and then I started overthinking. Oh, what do I do? Do I go get a new set? Do I go ahead and swap them out? But I don't have time to ride the bike in order to break the tires in. So, I'm going through this whole mental game with myself. I settled on I was gonna just take a tire off of one of my other bikes. Not the whole wheel and assembly and everything, just the tire. Tire and tube, put it on, and then make sure that it seats correctly and so that it's all good. In addition, at that point, after my one race, I noticed a little wiggle in my rim, and not saying that would cause you any real hard slowdown, but it could, because it would just move just a millimeter to the left, catch a brake pad for a tenth of a second, and then stop. But then every time you turn the wheel. So I don't have a truing stand. A truing stand is the device where you would take the wheel off, you put the wheel in it, and then you basically spin the wheel, and it has almost what looks like a bike brake. And it would, then you could see if the wheel is wiggling right or left, and the bike mechanic, who actually knows what they're doing, would sit there and turn it and adjust it in order to get your bike, get it perfectly spinning perfectly straight, so to say. Okay, now there's a couple things I'm not going to get way into here. This is already a deviation, but I want to say I kind of did a poor man's bike truing, and that is I would spin my wheel and I would look. So basically what I did is I turned you turn one spoke to the right, you turn the next one to the left, turn the next one to the right, next one to the left. That's how you're able to kind of adjust it. So if the wheel moves one way, you're looking at the spoke that would go from the rim to the opposite side. You tighten that one because you want it to pull it over. The next one you turn it the opposite way because you want to loosen it so it gives you that little bit of play. Anyways, I was able to basically straighten my wheel with a tolerance that I was pretty happy with, just by using my brakes that were on my bike. Basically, you just spin it, and I could see if it was getting close to my brake, that I knew where the spots were, and I was able to tighten it out a little bit. When you do that, you want to make sure that you don't over tighten anything, because you don't want to break it. And you want to make sure that you take it for a ride, because the first thing I did when I hopped on it that the morning of going to the race, your whole bike's going to make these little creaky sounds now, because all of the spokes are kind of readjusting, wiggling a little right, little left as they're getting kind of reseated in there. And you want to make sure that you're not going to make them move, break, puncture, whatever. Long and the short, take the wheel to your bike shop if it's bent, and give them $40. That's about what it cost here. They'll get it, so it's going to be perfect. You're still going to have those little eeks and creaks, like you probably can hear it in the chair I'm sitting in, just as the metal readjusts as you put it on. So when I say I went way overboard here, the other part behind it was I actually had taken the wheels, since I was already replacing the tire. I took the wheel and the tire off of the bike, my race bike, off of my bike that my trainer, and I have a third set of wheels that's just sitting there because when I had built a bicycle, I bought them, and they're like, when I call them my Nash Bar Specials, I don't know the name of the wheel, but they have a little bit of a dish to them, a little bit of an aero dish. So I actually sat down, I weighed every single wheel that I owned, I weighed every single tire, I weighed every single tube. I was really, really way too into thinking about this, way overboard than I ever should have even thought about was going to make any difference for me. So I figured out what wheel I'm going to use. Spoiler, it was the original one. I figured out what tire I'm going to use. Spoiler, it's the only one that I hadn't messed with. So basically put it together, put the bike on, go down. Now I'm ready to race. So that's when I say I had this emotional roller coaster. I was way invested, way overboard on top of this. Spoiler, it didn't matter in the end at all, one bit, whatever. I told you guys it was a fantastic race. I very much, enjoyed going to do it. What was the end result of really overthinking this? Well, the first run, I'm going to use my Garmin, my data, and I believe the 5K at the end was short. Although when I say I ran the whole thing, there's a big thing on Facebook right now about a triathlete and complaining and saying this and that. And I'm not getting into all of that. But, I did the full course, went out, did the turnaround, and that's where I'm thinking new race director might have had a few hiccups that they're going to have. Like I said, existing race, new race director. He's going to have to maybe get some things ironed out for next year. My watch only put my 5K, because it should be 3.1 miles, at a 2.77. So that said, though, it's if everybody is doing the same race course, everyone's going to be short and everyone's time's reflected about the same. Because people, you're running with them, you can see, I've been doing you race them, you see them in the beginning, the middle, the end, so you know right where you should be, and everything was correct there. First part of the run was that they advertised it at about, I want to say 1.5 miles. I ended up with 1.67 on my watch. I had an average running pace of a 7:22. Bike, I ended up with 14.33. Average miles per hour were 20.4, which we were talking about offline, a few of us, about if I could just get my bike up a little faster. That's the difference for me between having a very completely, absolutely flat course and having a hilly course on what I can personally do at my current level. Last run, once again, supposed to be a 5K. My watch tracked it at about a 2.77. I had about a 7:29 pace for that. So where does that put me? Well, let's go back to the emotional roller coaster. I said I wasn't sure that I knew if you signed up for a duathlon that it doesn't count for triathlon. Looked up that night, about 10 at night, actually emailed the race director, got an email back almost instantly, and I was so excited because USAT rule says if you signed up for the triathlon and if it's changed less than 24 hours before the race, it still counts for USAT for triathlon. They will still run it as a triathlon in the standings. But if it's changed 24 hours before, or B, if you had once again signed up for the duathlon, it doesn't count. Race starts at 7 a.m. The water E. coli level was measured at 10 a.m. So it's less than 24 hours. It's going to count. I got that news at, like I said, 10:30, almost 11 o'clock at night. Now I could really couldn't sleep going into the race. At the end of the race, I pull up, I go look at the results, and I'm like, when I say fairly devastated, I'm 15th in the age group, and I know by some of my times, I should have been farther up. And that being said, the age group now has over 30 people in it. I'm thinking there's not that many people signed up. The triathlon age groups go by 5-year increments. Duathlon age groups go by 10-year increments. So it's now not the male 30 to 35, 30, 30, 34, 35 to 39. They just have it as male 30 to 39. So I got to go through and actually pick out now and find people's ages to see where I had placed. Overall, ended up placing 9th out of 14th. Out of 14, I should say. So did not get my national qualifying bid. It happens. That's where I said overall, all of this worrying, all of this, all this time, all this worry, this concern over what really doesn't make a difference. The only thing I did want to say is I said there's two things that I think that not faults the race that they'll may need to correct for next year. I think the run was short on the end. Once again, everyone's running short on that, so I'm not concerned about that. But when I'd said you go up, you go north on the road until you hit the turnaround, I went up, went north, hit the turnaround, was coming out, and the volunteers stopped the race. Not, unless it's an emergency, they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to hold as much traffic as possible. They stopped us. When I say us, it wasn't everyone that was coming out, because had I been 4 seconds earlier, I could see the person in front of me. They let go. They stopped me. They stopped about 4 people behind me, let traffic go, then let us go once all traffic was clear. So that killed it kills your time. B, it kills your momentum. You're in the middle, you're halfway through pedaling as hard as you can. Now you got to come to a dead stop, lose all your momentum, literally. your muscles are cool and your legs are cooling. So, and now everybody that I had worked for the last 5 minutes to try to get to pass and put as much distance as possible, we're all now caught right up. We're starting out in a little pack, if you will. So I go beat and feed as hard as I can to take off from them. Now there's no one out front to the person I was 4 seconds behind. Now I'm over a minute behind on the bike. So that sucked. So trying to catch them. To boot, they made a very big deal about saying, and I forget what it was, Interstate 81 or 95, or I don't want to say 95. I know that's a big one, and that's not the one that's there. You basically, you're going north-south on this road, and there's an east-west road. But when you're going from out on the south to north portion of it, you end up going up as kind of an entrance ramp, and then back down onto the road that we were on. Coming back south, it doesn't work exactly that same way, but they are very adamant, do not go on whatever this is, 81. We've had people that ended up on there, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. So now they broke my momentum. I'm out trying as hard as I can to catch up, to somebody. I get back to that portion, which is about halfway down, so about a quarter of the way up on the ride, and the 3/4 of the way, now you're getting a little bit tired. And all I see is a sign that basically says, like, I'm saying 81 east, get in the right lane, 81 west, get in the left lane. Now I'm worried that I'm on the wrong side of the road. So I actually deviate, try to go back the way that I had originally came, because I could still see the other participants coming that direction, coming north, northward. I literally cross a couple lanes of traffic, move over, try to get there, and I don't see anyone. It just doesn't feel like it's right. I turn around, look the other way, and the people that were now following me, that were behind me, they go blazing straight through. So I had to turn around. It's not a huge difference in, how far I went. Maybe it was, 500 yards or something like that. But once again, it breaks your momentum. And, it's, had I not got stopped, I would have had the people, the other race participants to follow. Or would have been nice if they had a volunteer there, and they didn't. Hey, it's my fault. Maybe I got to take my ownership on it. But those two things right there are what can make the difference. When you're looking at my bike, between a 42-minute bike and the person, two people right beneath me, or that just beat me out, that were 38, 39 minutes. If I could have picked that 2 minutes back up there, it would have made a little bit of a difference, although not in the end. That's where I keep coming back to and saying, overall, what big difference did it really make? Nothing. Really made no difference. My final time, for the race ended up being a 1:16:54. The people who would have been, first, second, and third, or I should say, are first, second, and third in my age group, they ended up, doing a 1:07, 1:09, and 1:10. 2 minutes would have been nice, would have put me a little farther up. Instead of ninth, I probably would have been like seventh or sixth or something. Wouldn't have put me in the top, one or two, which, two is what would have been the national bid. So, and that's something where, like I said, that's kind of the end of my emotional roller coaster ride there, really sitting back and saying, I worried, I fretted, so much, thought, energy, and time went into this, in a 24-hour, 48-hour span of just worrying, and I should just spent more time enjoying it. And that being said, it didn't deter. When I was there with my wife and with my son, and I had a really great time with them. And the race was fun. I had fun doing it. But even if it was a total of 2 hours that I spent looking and researching and wondering and thinking, it's just time that I didn't need to do it all. In the end, you do your training, you show up, you give your best on race day. It's going to be what it's going to be. You're going to have some things that are going to be in your control. You're going to have some things that aren't going to be in your control. So overall, don't worry about it. It is what it is. Just go out, do your race, do your event, and, have fun. That's it. So still don't have John at this point, so I'm going to just kind of keep rolling, get into my next portion, and that is, anyone heard me say it, I was, basically heading north. We're ending when I say ending, our final destination, so to say, was visiting friends in Cape Cod. But my wife and I decided to go to Boston for a few days beforehand. So, very sneakily, because I said to her how we can do this and do that and have fun and do all this. Part of it was, hey, I've never really done Boston. I've been there once, high school trip, was one of the half a day things where you don't really appreciate it anyways. So I started doing some research, some fun stuff to do. But that's where I said it, this being the endurance podcast or, fitness, I wanted to, I want to share a couple of things that I saw or I did up there that I kind of planned out a little bit just because I really wanted to do it. First is, hey, it's Boston. They have a little race up there every, April or so. I'm not fast enough to qualify for it, but permanently, at least now I should say, I don't know how long it's been that way, the finish line of the Boston Marathon is painted right across the street. So we got there on Monday night. Tuesday, I went for a run. I went out ran around, Boston Commons and Boston Gardens, which is like a big park. It's kind of like Central Park, but for Boston. I ended up, working my way over and, went and got my photo, standing there, next to the finish line. And, it's just pretty cool. If you hear about it, you hear about the streets. People talk about Boylston and Mass Avenue and all that. It's just good to go. It was fun to go see it, to run it, and just see a very once again active culture that is up there and people out and enjoying it. The big thing, and I'd already hinted, just basically flat out said, was about November Project. Founded in Boston, shortest history. Brogan and Boyan, two friends, wanted to get in shape or stay in shape after their collegiate careers, and so the reason why it's the November Project is they started in November and said, we're going to work out and we're going to do this free thing and we're going to here's what we're going to do, and it grew into this group and this culture that they have tribes around the country, and everywhere does something different. But that being said, the kind of the staples and the mothership, is Boston. That's where it started. Monday they do one workout, and I don't want to say it wrong. I think it's over on Summit Avenue where they run this hill and they do squats and burpees and push-ups and everything. Friday is another type of workout somewhere else that they announce. They run through the city. Wednesdays, Harvard Stadium. So from where my hotel was, it was about a 4-mile run, and I ran 4 miles over. They have 2 sessions. They have the 5:30 group and they have the 6:30 group. So I show up, and I had been corresponding. We had them on the show previously, Brian Gould and Peter Villa. They're in Boston, and they have the How's Your Run Today podcast. So I had been corresponding with Brian and asking, because I know he's talked about it on his show, and I wanted to show up and do the workout. What I didn't know, and I guess there's only a few variations that you can end up doing, but I always just thought it was show up, run as many of the stadium steps as you can, leave. Well, they do what they were doing on this particular day. And like I said, there's about 3 different variations. That is one of them. They call that, and they also have that. It's called like their PR day. How many sections can you do? They were doing what they call Race Man, which I thought was pretty interesting. Race Man is they go over to, they span everybody out across however many sections it takes, and basically you look to your left or your right, you pick one person, and you say, you introduce yourself, and that they're all about, big sweaty hugs and big sweaty high fives. It's not little dainty. They're very bold, very boisterous whenever you're talking, and I will bleep myself when I say it, but they start the day and they yell, the group leader yells good morning, and everybody yells good morning, and they say, like, how are you? And the response is effing great. Fill in the blank on what effing is there, and it's all about being, just loud and proud, and we're happy, and etc. And so anyways, whenever with Race Man, you look to your left or your right, you pick somebody, you introduce yourself, you then say, hey, I'm glad you're here, and then you race. They say 3, 2, 1, go, and you race to the top. If you win, you go move one section to your left, If you lose, you move one section to your right. So everybody is then switching sections, and basically you have so much time, and then they reset, like I think it's 4 or 5 minutes, and then you race again. And then when you win, you move to the left. You lose, you move to the right. And so within a couple of races, you end up sorting yourself pretty much evenly. So that way you're with your own speed, if you will. But you're always shifting back and forth. Every race, you're every sprint up, you're racing somebody different, and you're meeting somebody new, and it's a really neat thing. That being said, I did not do that because they call you out and they say, if you're new, come here, and they take you down and introduce you, and they talk about what the group's about and all of that. But they also have what they call newbie 19. And in their infinite wisdom, and I don't say that sarcastically, it is they don't want you to come do one workout and then never come back again. They want you to come back to it. As such, they've kind of figured out. So Harvard Stadium is shaped like a horseshoe, and the whole thing is 37 sections. 19 is just over half, and they found that anyone, if you pretty much do more than that, and I'm going to admit to it, the next day you're sore, 2 days later you're really sore, and it's much harder to go down steps than it is to come up steps. And around the 19 is the sweet spot. If you don't do more than that, you're going to be sore a couple of days later, but you can come back, and they want you to come back for their Friday workout. They don't want you to just be a 1 day a week or a one and done and never come back. So anyways, so they had us start. And then the newbies, they had us start at section 37. And the rules, when I say rules, I'm using air quotes, they're simple. Harvard, if you think of a stadium, and it's actually about, I think it's 36 or 38 steps. When I say I use air quotes, steps, to get from the bottom to the top. And there are these big concrete bleachers is essentially what they are. Maybe 18 to 20 inches, I'm not quite sure. They're really big. And basically you run up the big, and then you come down the small. So if you run up and you go all the way to the very top one, and you're hugging the wall, you can't see me, I'm putting my hands up kind of like police up against the wall, they get you like that. And they even say that because if you were to skip the top step all the way around, 37 sections, that's like missing one whole section of the stadium. If you skip the top and the bottom, because some people, if you don't go all the way to the last one, now you're missing 2 sections. So it makes a difference. That one step doesn't seem like a lot, but when you add it up over time. So anyways, newbies start at the bottom of section 37, run to the top. They say go, I take off. I get to the top of the first section. I'm, top 3 out of maybe 25 people to get up there. Move over, come down then I say down the little ones, down the center of the section. Now, instead of the big 20-inch step or whatever, they have like a regular size step, and you come down the steps, get to the bottom, basically zig over to the middle, run up. The second one, I'm starting to huff a little bit, and I'm thinking, okay, this ain't, I get it, I ain't too bad. Third section, made it about a quarter of the way up, and then you start like almost power walking, power hiking. You know what I mean? That's it. I made it 2 full sections on a sprint, slowed it, and then it was, that's about what I could do. I could run down them. I could run about a quarter to a third up them, and then, it's this little like power walk as fast as you can get to the top. And let me tell you, it's a workout. It is tough. So how did I do on newbie 19? Well, I made it to newbie 19 and turned around, and then because they were utilizing the next part, you don't want to mess them up. So they basically said, if you think you can do it, start working your way back across. So I went from section 37, 36, 35, 34. I went down over, did section either 16, 19 or 18, somewhere in there. There was some construction going on in the stadium, so got a little screwed up. Started working my way back to the right, and that being said, at that point, Brian actually came over and met me. I'd met him before we said hi and so forth. And, like I said, I was going to go do the newbie. He was doing the race man. And then he had come over just to spend some time with me. And we did the remainder of the workout, X amount of sections together. Because if he caught me at 19, we'll just say 20, I did, 5 or 6 sections with him. So I ended up doing about 26 sections. Not what they call a full tour. Full tour would be 37 sections. Obviously, I didn't get a full tour in. But why did I ignore their advice and go a little harder? I knew it was I'm not going to say a once in a lifetime. If I'm back in Boston on a Wednesday morning, I'm going to be there. But Boston Harvard Stadium from my house is 8.5 hours, So, I wasn't going to be there. I had no opportunity to go I was going to be in Cape Cod on Friday. I didn't have the opportunity to do it. So I figured, go as big as I can, go big or go home. Well, I went as big as I could and then, went on vacation. Figured, okay, I got 2 days, 3 days of, laying on a beach and riding in the car. I think I'll be okay. It was tough. It was hard. It was awesome. I loved absolutely every minute of it. And like I said, if I was there or close enough, I would definitely go back to it. As I said, I don't want to say global, but I think they are. There are at least 30 some tribes out there, and I know there's like Atlanta, I know there's New York, I imagine Chicago. It really makes me want to look into it to see where else they are whenever I would travel. There's not one within a few hours of me. I mean, I think there's Philly, but once again, Philly's 4 hours from my house, so that's not something that's going to be feasible for me to drop down, do a morning workout, and come back. There's not one, State College or like I said, within an hour of me at least. So. Don't think there's enough interest in me to start one to get a pledge tribe, but it would be real fun to go out and check and see, where they are. And like I said, whenever I'm traveling, definitely want to check into it and meet up on it. So if it's something you've never heard about, I highly recommend you check it out and see if there's one in your area. If you're, like I said, if you're traveling and check out the cities, or once again, if you're ever going to be in Boston. If you could possibly be there, once again, Monday, they work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Wednesday is when I say the day, it's the iconic, it's the one that started it. It's the flagship. So I think it's pretty awesome. Highly recommend it. At this point, I guess I kind of got a full show. I mean, I got over 48 minutes on the ticker. John, I haven't heard anything from him, so I'm assuming he's still out of power. So, sorry you guys just had to sit and listen to me without much, without no banter, I should say, just me talking. Because I talked to this episode here about, the City Island catfish try. Still don't know why they call it the catfish. Takeaways from this, I talked about November project. Takeaways from this show. What can I say? Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. Don't worry about it. We're here. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. Get out there, enjoy it. What John and I said a few episodes back, and several times as well, and that is, you can't just fret over the race. You really need to enjoy your training and so forth. One thing John and I had talked about just a bit, I think I might have said it in the beginning, but I'll repeat it now. Next week's show, I'm gonna declare that we're calling it Bring the Heat, and we're gonna talk about tips, tools, tactics, training as far as heat goes. And there's a comedian, I forget his name now, and you can Google it probably and it'll come up on YouTube or whatnot. But he had said that there was a news article about a guy who, or was on the news, I should say, he was like a TV broadcast, and he was out running in 104-degree heat and he died. And the next thing was a 5-minute, dissertation on how to train appropriately in 104 heat. And he says, what's wrong with that guy? Does his car not work? that always sticks with me when I'm out there running, like this morning, and it's was already 80 degrees at 8 a.m. and there's sometimes you just, when I say can't get away from it, I guess you can get inside on the treadmill and so forth, but you as you guys have heard me say, I'm trying to get out, train hot, so that way it's going to be cooler when I go and run at Chicago in the fall here. So we'll bring you some of what holds us back, some of what we do to help combat it and so forth, and try to pull a few articles and get you guys some resources with that. So if you haven't already, please, if you find the show of value, share it with somebody, as well as, give us a rating and a review. Get out there on iTunes or Podbean or Stitcher or wherever you're listening to this, and please leave us a rating and a review. There are a lot newer shows with a lot smaller listener base that have 10 times the amount of reviews we have. You don't think it makes a difference, but it really does. Please just get out there. It only takes a minute. Click however many stars you think is appropriate, hopefully 4 or 5. Leave just a couple of words, even just hey, like listening to them, or everyday guys, or however you want, whatever feels right. Leave a few words. The longer the better, if you'd like. You can also reach out directly to John or myself with questions or comments, show topics you want us to cover, questions you have. We'll obviously reply right back to you, and also maybe covered on the show. He's John at EnduranceForEveryone.com. Mine email is Rob at EnduranceForEveryone.com. Also, you can find us on pretty much every, when John has us out there on a lot of the social medias. Facebook is the big one. Come join the group and, jump in and join in on some of the discussions that we have going out there. So, until next week, I just want to say, endurance, this is the Endurance for Everyone podcast, and
thanks for listening to the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you have comments or questions for the show, send an email to teamE4E at enduranceforeveryone.com. And remember, swim calm, bike strong, and run steady.